So good morning. So we will begin. Thank you. Good morning. The Honorable Excellencies and members of the missions to the United Nations and representative of employers and workers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to the ILO and open this global forum, the Boosting Skills for a Just Transition and the Future Work. This is being organized in the context of the ILO Centenary celebration and also the World Environment Day. As you know, the key objective of this event today are threefold. The first, we are going to recognize the occupational needs and skills gap in the context of future work and green technological changes and climate action. Second, we're trying to highlight the environmental challenges, effective skills responses, strategies, and also good practices for a just transition for all. Third, so we are going to discuss potential international collaboration on advancing green human capital to support decent work and strengthening climate action. As you can imagine, this policy forum is very timely as the climate change effects are worsening rather than improving. Climate change and environmental degradations reduce productivities and destroy jobs, and their effects fall disproportionately on the most vulnerable people. We know the action to combat this process can potentially create millions of jobs, but at the same time, we know this requires effective measures to invest in people's capabilities. The growing importance of the sustainable development and transition to carbon-free economy requires new skills and qualification and offering great potential for the creation of green jobs. But these all imply significant structural changes and transformation of existing jobs. In short, the essential process of transition to the green economy may disrupt the labor market and will require reskilling and upskilling of workers to reduce the risk of the rising unemployment and poverty and inequality. So let me first give the floor to Mr. Guy Ryder, Director General of International Labour Organization. Thank you very much for being with us, despite your incredibly busy schedule nowadays. Okay, floor is yours, DJ.
Thank you, Sang-Yeon. Minister, ambassadors, participants, ladies and gentlemen, let me then add my welcome to this important global forum. Particular welcome to those like you, Minister, who've travelled a long way to join us today. And a particular word, if I might, of appreciation to the ILO's partner agencies in this endeavour, the Swedish International Development Corporation Agency, CEDA, the European Centre for the Development of Vocational Training, CEDEFOP. Their contribution to today's event has been absolutely indispensable. Ladies and gentlemen, we meet actually at a very, very special moment. We have at least three things to celebrate today. The first, of course, and you've mentioned it, Sang-Yeon, is the ILO's centenary, a real opportunity to look to what the future of work must be. And we meet as well on the very eve of the ILO's centenary conference. Secondly, although one day late, we have a chance to mark World Environment Day that took place yesterday. And thirdly, not least, the ILO is in its first Green Week, in which we are highlighting everything that we are doing at the ILO to shape a greener future of work. So it's an auspicious moment, I think, to come together for this forum. Well, around the room, I can see an enormous amount of knowledge and experience in relation to the matters that we're going to be discussing, and I'm very confident that bringing you all together at this forum is going to generate important new insights on skill needs and skill gaps, on good practices and strategies to respond to the environmental challenges that we face as we try to create a just transition for all. I think we are all aware that climate change and environmental degradation are among the greatest challenges of our time, and there is, I think, a growing sense of urgency about what is happening and increasing demands, and we hear them all the time, for concrete action. Let's remember that 4 years ago already, the international community made two crucial decisions, took two crucial steps forward with the adoption, Ambassador, of the Paris Agreement on Climate Change and, of course, the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development with its 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And in that same year, 2015, the ILO's governing body unanimously adopted guidelines for a just transition towards environmentally sustainable economies and societies for all. And those guidelines stress the importance of skills development as a key policy area in the transition to a future that is environmentally sustainable and just. And these guidelines, these ILO guidelines, were highlighted in the Solidarity and Just Transition Silesia Declaration that was adopted at the UN Climate Change Conference just last December. And in this context, then, I think that today's Global Forum has particular relevance and importance because it gives us an opportunity to bring all of these strands together and to reinforce the momentum for progress. And I feel it is particularly fortuitous that we meet, as I've said already, on the very eve of an international labour conference that will be charged with adopting a very important declaration on the future of work where, amongst all of the more controversial issues on the table, the issue of adding environmental sustainability into the historic texts of the ILO will be before us. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change and environmental degradation are not the only challenge facing us in shaping a just and sustainable future of work. Skills development will be crucial, but they also have, in this regard, but also have to respond effectively to the many other forces that are transforming the way that we live and the way that we work. There is massive discussion everywhere, in the media, in the ILO, in all international fora, about how technology and machine learning, for example, will affect the number and the types of jobs that we will have in the future. Indeed, will affect the very nature of work. I think that we all understand that this fourth industrial revolution, if we accept the term, will inevitably entail a process of creative destruction, as every previous industrial revolution has. It will generate many new jobs, but it will destroy others. The balance has always been, historically, a positive one of job creation. And we already see that opportunities are there, and that innovations such as renewable energy or new materials are helping to build carbon-neutral economies. The ILO's own research shows that a green transition can indeed create millions of new jobs. Take energy sustainability. By 2030, again according to ILO research, we could see a net gain of some 18 million jobs. But to benefit from these new job opportunities, people would, of course, need to be equipped with the appropriate new skills. And in this same research, let's not forget it, it is suggested that some 6 million jobs could be lost. There is the positive and the negative side of the balance sheet. And for those workers, the need for reskilling and upskilling to help them to find new jobs and to ensure our societies are not damaged by the consequences of transition is particularly pressing. Of course, a just and inclusive transition to a carbon-neutral economy will not happen by default. The figures I've mentioned are what can happen, not what will happen, because everything depends upon what we do. It requires effective policies, institutions, and action. We will need to support businesses so that they can take advantages of the opportunities, strengthen social protection so that people do not fall through the gaps, and prepare people for new jobs with the right policies and training. And reskilling and upskilling are important, but not only because they underpin just transition. They will also help to ensure a human-centred approach to the future of work. This was what the ILO's Global Commission on the Future of Work proposed in its report in January of this year. And I quote from it when it talks of a human-centred agenda that strengthens the social contract by placing people and the work that they do at the centre of economic and social policy and business practice. And it's worth recalling perhaps that the very first recommendation of our Global Commission calls for the creation of a right and entitlement to lifelong learning for all workers. Ladies and gentlemen, the approach proposed by the Global Commission calls on us to support the transition by investing in three areas: people's capabilities, institutions of work, and in decent and environmentally sustainable jobs. And in particular, the human-centred agenda highlights the need for equal and active engagement by governments, employers and workers. In other words, social dialogue will be the principal mechanism for identifying skill needs and for developing strategies that support the creation of new jobs and minimise the effects of changes to current forms of work. And it also calls for close partnerships with civil society organisations and with educational institutions, and this at national, local and at sectoral levels. Policymakers, career counsellors, training providers, curriculum developers, and those who design competency standards all need to be involved and to know what kind of jobs will be available and what types of skills will be needed. This is important, specialist, technical, and let's face it, quite difficult work, and I therefore welcome and commend to you the new ILO report, Skills for a Greener Future, which has been published in partnership with CEDEFOP. The report's key findings, available for this forum, I hope will provide valuable guidance for your discussions. Let me conclude, colleagues, by saying that the skills challenges we face in preparing for the future of work is perhaps daunting, but the mission is not only necessary, it's possible. It's possible if we act together and if we act now. The future is unpredictable, but that does not mean that we are powerless to anticipate and to influence it. With conscious choices, decisive action, we can indeed make the future of work that we want. So I thank you for your participation, and I look forward very much to the results of this forum, which I take as a sort of a prologue to the International Labour Conference that will be starting on Monday of next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director General. As you can see, in this opening panel, we are so pleased to have distinguished speakers from developing countries and also from the countries who are considered the champion of the just transition. So let me first hear from the Honorable Excellency, Mr. Ignatius Baffour Ahua. He is a Minister of the Employment and Labor Relations in Ghana. So it's a great honor to have you, Minister, and so I very much hope, look forward to hearing from you about the just transition from developing perspective. So, Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
Director General, His Excellencies, members of the high level, and my dear participants, I bring you greetings from Ghana. Ghana is the center of the earth. But for those of you who do not know Ghana, let me just say that Ghana is perhaps the only country which has the privilege of having the Greenwich Meridian passing through it, and then also having the equator coming so close to it. So when we are talking of the center of the world, I say it is Ghana. And for us, that is even the more reason why issues of climate change are so important to us. Because if climate change actually catches in on Ghana, then it tells us that it's caught in with the whole of the world. Anyway, let me come back to my test. Fellow participants, I'm delighted to be part of this global forum on the just transition towards environmentally sustainable economies and societies for all. Focus on boosting skills for just transition and the future of work. Indeed, the conversation has been initiated by the ILO itself, recognizing the common changes or transformations that the implementation of climate change mitigation measures is expected to have on the world of work, particularly where vulnerable groups and societies are concerned. The effects of climate change is real. Today, it is very common to see in the newspapers and, of course, other news portals issues of flooding, bushfires, droughts, loss of vegetation, distortions to our ecosystems, and depletion of aquatic life in some water bodies. I have read research papers that suggest that we stand a chance of losing some types of fish life in our oceans and water bodies should the water temperature rise by 2 degrees Celsius. These rising levels of carbon and methane gases in the atmosphere is truly the biggest issue for development faced by our generation and the immediate generations to come after us. Over the years, we have articulated and attempted to address this issue through international conventions, protocols, and agreements such as the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, Kyoto Protocol, and the Paris Agreement. As a follow-up to these instruments, member states of the Conference of Paris, which is held every year, have gone further to develop their nationally determined contributions designed to implement adaptation and mitigation programs to address climate change by outlining emissions reduction targets. My dear participants, quickly into that venture, we come to the realization of the fact that the response measures to climate change also present another set of challenges that must be addressed. In recent conversations, we get the understanding that some of these measures, particularly mitigation measures, tend to have internal and cross-border effects. In addition, local economies, for example, carbon pricing and leakage, does affect many countries. Countries that implement carbon markets as part of their NDCs had the unintended impact of dislocating industries into other jurisdictions and putting distressed industries at risk. This impact also created unintended socioeconomic impacts such as limiting access to markets and reducing competitiveness of countries on the global markets. Let me give you another example. What would be the impact of Ghana's economy if we suddenly decided to stop the drilling of crude oil? Ghana is a third world country. I recall in 2007, when we first discovered oil, the kind of joy which our people had, because the thinking was that it was the beginning of a new turn of events. Our economy was going to be boosted by that. And then all of a sudden, because of climate issues, we decided that, yes, we're going to stop drilling oil and perhaps go into some other ventures. What happens to the vast infrastructure investments that have been made in the sector and will have to be prematurely put to no use? What will be the impact on households whose incomes depended on the activities in the oil and gas sector? How many oil and gas value chain jobs will be lost? Ladies and gentlemen, transitioning from high carbon to low carbon emitting economies is undeniably the desirable pathway to sustainable development. However, we need to ensure that the mitigating policies and programs do not create unintended socioeconomic impacts that worsen the plight of workers, particularly women and the vulnerable. We need to build capacities and put in place mechanisms that will enable us understand these impacts to specific areas and enhance information sharing and expertise, cooperation on response strategies, the assessment and analysis of impacts, economic diversification, and the just transition of the workforce. In the case of workforce, we need to understand the impact of our respective NDCs on the labor force in terms of the types of jobs that will be lost, those that will be created, and those that will be transformed. In the same vein, we need to understand how many to be lost, created, and transformed, as well as the sectors, industries, workers to be affected, and the kind of active labor market policies that can be implemented to eliminate or minimize the impacts on workers. Currently in Ghana, we may not have the full complement of expertise to help us manage these transitional issues. In January 2017, a national dialogue on just transition towards an environmentally sustainable economies and societies for all was organized in Accra with the support of ILO. We were able to bring together key stakeholders to start the conversation on the socio-economic impact of Ghana's nationally determined contributions on workers and will be done to address the issues. Ladies and gentlemen, incidentally, the National Employment Policy, which was developed in 2015, recognizes green job as an important avenue for government and the private sector to create decent jobs. However, in order for us to take advantage of the opportunities there may be, we need to develop local capacities so that we are able to explore and assess the number and types of jobs that can be created in this area, as well as the social groups that will need the most support. This year, we have started implementation of a project with the support of the ILO in collaboration with the Environmental Protection Agency, Employers Association, and the Trade Unions Congress, research institutions, and other partners to build capacity on how to use the ILO Green Jobs Assessment Model and other tools, as well as sensitize workers on this issue. It is against this background that I find it useful to be part of today's conversation on this topic. We are definitely in need of the skills that will enable us to assess and report on the socio-economic impacts, particularly the unintended ones related to the labor markets, sensitize the policymakers and the affected population, develop schemes and programs to support skills development in new areas and implementation. Active labor market interventions to cushion the vulnerable groups, especially rural women, from the shocks of the transition. And DG, let me say that Ghana, as a third world country, makes a lot of its revenue from exploitation of natural resources. Indeed, the major contributors of our economy has been from mining. Of course, I'm talking of oil, inclusive of mining, and also agriculture. And all these have impacts on the ecology. So indeed, if we are looking forward to having a green economy, then it means that it is going to affect almost every life of the Ghanaian. And it is something that we should not lose sight of and think that it is going to be a small thing. But it is something which must also be done. So it needs a lot of policy initiative and policy thinking, beginning from the training of the child to adulthood. Because if the Ghanaian child grows up with the mentality that, yes, as I grow up, perhaps the best option for me to work is to be in the field working as a farmer, because about 40% of our working population are on the farms, and most of our agro practices are not the type that helps to conserve the energy, to conserve the environment. So if we are going to change this, then it means that we may have to start changing even the training of the child from day one to adulthood. And that is why Ghana as a country, and of course that is led by His Excellency the President, has decided that from hence we will make sure that every school-going Ghanaian has an opportunity to school up to a certain level that he will be able to use his mind to create things on his own and be able to do things on his own. And we are giving more emphasis also on TVET education so that more people can do things with their hands. So that is indeed some of the things we are doing as a nation to be able to address, because if there are new technologies and people are not trained to adapt to the usage of the new technologies, there's no way they can use it. So we are starting with the training of our human skills, and then also making sure that we move people from tilling the land also into TVET. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the transition to be just and sustainable, we need to make and ensure that no one is left behind. So, indeed, every Ghanaian ought to be on board. And by saying that every Ghanaian should be on board, we are also saying that everybody on the globe should be on the board. And for us, we think that if we work together, it is something which is achievable. And we need to actually work together to make sure that we achieve a green earth for all the populace in this world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister. I think you have given quite a wide range of issues, which I'm sure will be discussed at this forum. Especially your concrete example from Ghana will be greatly appreciated. Also, your point about the complex process of the just transition, also the importance of the protecting vulnerable people, and also the importance of the bring together stakeholders to design policy responses. I think that's a very important point. I think also these are also the issues which has been extensively discussed in the many countries, especially in France, which is considered in many respects as a champion in the just transitions. France has demonstrated how we can design the climate policies for the climate change and skill development. So it's a great honor to have the Honorable Excellency Mr. François Vassou, Ambassador, the permanent mission of the France to the UNOG in Geneva. So thank you very much for being with us today, and the floor is yours, Ambassador.
Merci, cher Sangjan. Monsieur le Directeur Général, cher Guy, Monsieur le Ministre, Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, cher public. La lutte contre le changement climatique, aujourd'hui, c'est la mère de toutes les batailles de notre décennie, en tout cas, et probablement des décennies suivantes. C'était en 2007, il y a 12 ans. La France avait organisé un ensemble de rencontres politiques que nous avions appelées le Grenelle de l'environnement, par référence à un vieux passé qui remontait à 1968. L'idée était d'associer l'ensemble de la société française, l'État, les collectivités locales et territoriales, les organisations non gouvernementales, les partenaires sociaux, les syndicats, les employeurs, pour prendre des décisions à long terme en matière d'environnement et de développement durable. Il s'agissait en particulier de veiller à essayer de préserver la diversité par la mise en place de schémas régionaux de cohérence écologique pour diminuer aussi les émissions de gaz à effet de serre tout en améliorant l'efficacité énergétique. Bon. Tout cela nous a conduit, 8 ans plus tard, à l'accord de Paris sur le climat et à la mise au point d'objectifs ambitieux dans le cadre de l'agenda 2030 que vous avez mentionné, Monsieur le Directeur Général. Mais aussi, vous noterez que les principes de l'OIT offrent un cadre pertinent d'action sur la transition juste, car ils permettent de mettre en cohérence différents objectifs politiques. Et l'heure aujourd'hui, c'est à l'action. L'action, nous espérons que la conférence qui va s'ouvrir lundi va nous donner des orientations conformes à la nature de l'OIT, tripartite, avec une vocation régulatoire. Mais ce qui est essentiel pour nous, encore plus peut-être, c'est de conjuguer les impératifs du droit du travail avec les impératifs environnementaux, avec la justice sociale et avec la durabilité économique. Mon pays, la France, fait face à cette transformation et elle est difficile. Vous avez vu combien elle était difficile au cours des derniers mois d'ailleurs. Dans un premier temps, nous devons gérer le processus de création et de destruction des emplois qui ne sont pas détruits et créés au même endroit et avec les mêmes personnes. Il s'agit de compenser et de gérer les impacts différenciés des changements environnementaux, des politiques de transition écologique sur les populations et dans le monde du travail. Mais nous avons une autre ambition qui va au-delà de la seule lutte contre la régression sociale. Il faut aussi qu'en luttant contre la régression sociale, nous puissions promouvoir et favoriser les gains sociaux de la transition écologique. Le premier, par exemple, les écologistes nous disent qu'il faut consommer, travailler, vivre plus près de chez soi pour limiter les dépenses énergétiques liées à de trop nombreux déplacements. Ça veut dire qu'il faut créer des emplois non délocalisables. Nous tous qui travaillons, nous savons combien c'est important d'avoir droit à un emploi qui ne soit pas transférable à 10 000 km du jour au lendemain. C'est un très important acquis social. Ça, c'est un élément important. Que les emplois soient non délocalisables, c'est un élément qui est lié à la lutte contre le changement climatique. Et puis, nous savons que protéger le travail dans ces conditions, c'est un phénomène complexe qui nécessite des actions publiques fortes. Alors, qu'est-ce que la France fait? Eh bien, la France, d'abord, elle souhaite disposer d'une vision prospective et partagée des besoins. C'est pourquoi le ministère de la Transition écologique et solidaire en France a développé ce que nous appelons l'Observatoire national des emplois et des métiers de l'économie verte. C'est plus facile à s'en souvenir sous son sigle, l'ONEMEV. Et l'ONEMEV comporte un pôle d'analyse quantitative sur le nombre d'emplois et leurs caractéristiques, et puis un pôle d'analyse qualitative qui suit l'évolution des compétences et élabore des recommandations en termes de besoins et de formation. Nous avons créé pour les individus un mécanisme d'accompagnement à travers les différents outils qui relèvent des politiques du ministère du Travail, et notamment un plan d'investissement dans les compétences. Alors c'est facile pour quelqu'un qui parle encore mieux français que moi, monsieur le directeur général, c'est le PIC, le plan d'investissement dans les compétences. Et il s'adresse à des jeunes qui sont éloignés du marché du travail pour essayer de les ramener vers le marché du travail par des emplois écologiques. Et puis, au niveau collectif, le gouvernement français, au plus haut niveau de l'État, a développé un outil original, les contrats de transition écologique, qui ont pour objectif de donner un avenir écologique cohérent à un territoire, en mobilisant toutes les parties prenantes, institutionnelles, mais aussi économiques. Cette démarche a été inscrite dans les orientations transmises à l'administration préfectorale, nos gouverneurs locaux, par le président de la République en septembre 2017 et intégrée au plan climat. Et puis, nous voyons déjà dans notre vie quotidienne, nous essayons de faire quelques changements. Par exemple, pour l'ambassade ici, eh bien, le ministère des Affaires étrangères nomme maintenant dans les ambassades des spécialistes des ambassades vertes. Alors, nous en avons une trentaine qui tournent dans le réseau. Alors, ils viennent et ils nous disent ce qu'il faut faire. Alors, c'est très ennuyeux parce qu'il faut changer toutes nos habitudes de vie. Alors, voilà. Maintenant, vous allez voir, c'est comme ça que je commence à venir en vélo maintenant au BIT de temps en temps quand il fait beau, et non plus en voiture. Mais il y a des choses plus complexes encore, se débarrasser des plastiques en particulier, etc. Sur le plan international, enfin, la France souhaite la création d'une coalition internationale sur la transition juste. C'est une initiative que le ministre Nicolas Hulot vous avait suggéré, Monsieur Ryder, lors de sa visite à Genève fin 2017. Et je me réjouis de voir ici, dans ce forum, peut-être une première préfiguration de ce projet commun. Pour conclure, mon pays rejoint la proposition du rapport de la Commission mondiale sur l'avenir du travail d'un agenda centré sur l'humain. C'est un élément qui se trouve également dans le projet de déclaration du centenaire que nous soutenons. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. I think the ambassador really highlighted the importance of the taking actions. I think the on the just transition, we need the actions at the national and also the global level as well. So as you know, the next actual session of the Conference of the Parties, the COP25, will take place in Santiago, Chile. Just transition has occupied an important place in the agenda of climate talks and skill development. And also skill development is certainly an important pillar of just transition. And as you may recall, the COP24 in Poland adopted a solidarity and just transition Silesia the declaration. So we hope the discussion in Chile will continue to pay attention to social effects of the climate changes. So in that respect, it's a great honor to have the Honorable Excellency Mr. Juan Eduardo Eguiguren, Ambassador, the Permanent Mission of the Chile to UNOPS in Geneva. So Ambassador, floor is yours.
Muchas gracias, señor Director General, señor Ministro, embajadores, señoras y señores. Es un honor y un agrado haber sido invitado a participar en la apertura de este foro que tiene lugar tan cercano al inicio de la Conferencia Internacional del Trabajo en el año del centenario de la OIT y, por supuesto, también celebrando el Día del Medio Ambiente. Chile, al igual que todos en la sociedad internacional, estamos conscientes que el mundo del trabajo se está transformando radicalmente por el efecto de la innovación tecnológica, la evolución demográfica, el cambio climático y la globalización. Es tan fuerte el impacto que tendrá la innovación tecnológica que, según algunos estudios, se estima que alrededor del 50% de los trabajos o actividades actuales podrían ser parcialmente automatizados, siendo los trabajos rutinarios con bajos requerimientos de habilidades y bajos salarios los con mayor riesgo de automatización. El cambio climático agrega el factor de urgencia, especialmente pensando en las generaciones que vienen y el impacto en las zonas geográficas más expuestas a este fenómeno. Chile es un país que está en el sur de América del Sur, cercano a la Antártida, y somos un país que vemos la influencia que tiene el cambio climático muy claramente. El cambio demográfico nos desafía a ver cómo nos hacemos cargo de distintos temas. Ya vendrá el tema de la migración climática producto del cambio climático. Y también yo quería introducir el tema del envejecimiento, el cual debemos visualizarlo como un desafío positivo. De hecho, Chile está promoviendo la noción del envejecimiento saludable y creemos que esta noción debe ser considerada en el mundo del trabajo futuro. La globalización, que tantos nos beneficia y que a veces mucho nos confunde y que parece estar en entredicho por algunos conflictos a nivel mundial, cumple un rol clave en la búsqueda de la cooperación entre los Estados. Naciones Unidas, para enfrentar esta nueva realidad, definió la Agenda 2030 con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, que tiene por objeto que todos los actores, gobierno, sociedad civil, empresas, trabajadores, academia, nos hagamos cargo colaborativamente de estos desafíos. Se trata de un acuerdo en que quedó de manifiesto lo importante que es el multilateralismo, en momentos en que muchas veces es criticado. El multilateralismo ha sido importante para alcanzar metas globales, regionales y nacionales que sean comunes y entendibles para todos. Por otro lado, teniendo presente los profundos cambios que estamos viviendo, se nos da la oportunidad que debemos aprovechar, pues indudablemente permitirá el desarrollo de nuevas habilidades que transformarán los trabajos que hasta ahora conocemos y darán origen a otros antes inexistentes. Las nuevas profesiones y empleos requerirán también de nuevas competencias de los trabajadores, tecnológicas, digitales y transdisciplinarias, con un fuerte enfoque en las habilidades socioemocionales y en la capacidad de adaptación y apertura al aprendizaje continuo y a gran velocidad. Estas competencias serán herramientas fundamentales para enfrentar los continuos cambios, la incertidumbre y las nuevas tendencias. En esta materia, Chile enfrenta un gran desafío, puesto que apenas un 22% de los trabajadores cuenta con las habilidades que se potenciarán con la revolución tecnológica. Es por ello que creemos que la mejor forma de prepararnos para los cambios disruptivos que se avecinan es a través de la creación de un sistema articulado de formación, de la definición de qué competencias serán requeridas, de la promoción de iniciativas que fomenten desde temprana edad la relación entre las empresas y los estudiantes y de la elaboración de políticas públicas destinadas a anticipar los requerimientos de los trabajos del futuro. Señoras y señores, se requiere avanzar hacia economías más verdes y circulares, economías bajas en emisiones de carbono y uso eficiente de los recursos naturales, cuyos pilares sean la sostenibilidad ambiental, social y económica y que promueva el trabajo decente. Al respecto, como se ha señalado, Chile hospedará la próxima Conferencia de Naciones Unidas para el Cambio Climático, la COP25, que se realizará en Santiago del 2 al 13 de diciembre. Se trata de una reunión clave para preparar la entrada en vigor del Acuerdo de París, incrementando la ambición para reducir emisiones y potenciando las medidas de adaptación. La transición hacia una economía más verde es un imperativo urgente. Como nadie sabe qué pasará en el futuro del trabajo, tenemos una gran oportunidad de caminar juntos, gobiernos, empleadores y trabajadores. Pero se necesita ampliar la mirada e incorporar a otros actores claves como los centros de capacitación y universidades, asociaciones de emprendedores, ONGs, entre otros. El diálogo social puede contribuir a que la transición sea justa. El director general de la OIT invitó a los países a comprometerse con implementar un plan de acción sobre el futuro del trabajo construido con diálogo social. Esta invitación a trabajar juntos para un mejor futuro del trabajo es nuestro desafío. Y en este sentido les deseo mucho éxito a todos quienes participan en este importante foro. Muchas gracias.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Your message was very clear and which will be echoed in this forum throughout today. And as you noticed, this forum would not be possible without very strong and constructive and committed collaboration with our partners. One of them was the European Center for the Development of the Vocational Training, CDFO. The acting director of the CDFO, Ms. Mara de Brugia, she very much wants to be with us, but because of the health situation, she couldn't come to the forum today. But she has kindly sent her video messages, so I just want to put the video message on the screen. Can you put?
Director General, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good morning. It is a great pleasure for me to be part of the high-level opening of this global forum, even though unfortunately I cannot be with you in person today. I would like to thank the International Labour Organization for the opportunity to address you through this video message. The theme of today's event, Boosting Skills for a Greener Economy, could hardly be more topical, as young people are calling for action to reach the Paris Agreement goals to save our planet, and importantly, 85% of Europeans consider this as a chance to create economic growth and jobs. But what does the transition to a greener economy imply for occupations and people's skills? As you may know, CEDEFOP's aim is precisely to help devise and implement policies that bridge education and training and work. With our research and analysis, we support the European Commission, Member States and social partners in their work to ensure that young people and adults can acquire the skills they need for jobs and life, and that empower them to adapt to change and to innovate. To explore the implications of the greening of the economy for jobs and skills, CEDEFOP joined forces with the ILO already in 2010, at a time when the EU had set ambitious targets to tackle climate change and shift to a greener economy. We carried out national studies to understand which skills the shift to a greener economy requires and to identify effective response strategies. At CEDEFOP, we focused on 6 EU countries. Recently, we repeated this joint exercise to understand how countries' responses have developed since the days of the economic slump. New green occupations have emerged and others will surface, but it is also the greening of many existing jobs that requires curriculum updates and even new qualifications across education and training levels. What we have seen very clearly is the need for collaboration and partnerships between governments, social partners and training providers to anticipate which green skills are required in the specific context, to design effective responses and to upskill and reskill people effectively. From the EU perspective, this update was really timely. The European Commission has adopted a long-term strategic vision for a prosperous, modern, competitive and climate-neutral economy by 2050. It highlights the effects of this transition on industries, jobs and skills. But also, this course on future education and training policy is ongoing. I'm really pleased that this global forum, which reflects ILO's and CEDEFOP's close collaboration in this field, we look at our findings in a wider perspective and also consider the social dimension of this transition. I'm pleased that we have been asked to contribute to this event, and I'm confident that your discussions will inspire further progress and collaboration and help promote a sustainable transition to a greener economy which reaps benefits for all citizens. I would like to seize this opportunity to congratulate ILO on its centenary and close by wishing you a very successful event.
So, thank you, Mala. So I also wish her the fast recovery. And also one of the very important partners of this conference is the Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA. I very much want to thank Sweden for their continued support in supporting our actions in just transition and skill development. I have honors to have Mr. Henning Envall and Counselor at the Permanent Mission of Sweden in Geneva. So let me invite him to say a couple of words there.
Thank you, Sang John, and good morning, everybody. Excellencies, dear Minister, Director General, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues. I'd like to say how honored I am to speak to you at this opening session and to be part by doing so in the ILO centenary and the ILO Green Week. Also, it's the Swedish National Day today, but I don't mind working. I think that's a good flexible working arrangements that I can, my kids are in school, so I can be here today and be off with them some other day. And we're here for something important. I really believe that. We are here to discuss the needs and partnerships on skills development to create jobs in green economies. The challenge and benefit of being last is that many of the things you wanted to say have already been said by distinguished co-panelists. But we have some points that I'd like to make, because Sweden, through our Development Cooperation Agency, has supported ILO's work in this field in promoting decent work and better living standards for women and men in developing countries, in support of the policy drivers for gender equality and non-discrimination and just transition and environmental sustainability. And this is to advance social justice through decent work and ensuring that no one is left behind in the implementation of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. It's about climate change. Maybe you've read the studies by the ILO, Director General mentioned it, the OECD and the World Bank that show how unchecked climate change is a recipe for weak growth and job creation. But there are also opportunities in green jobs. And at the same time, we're transforming the way we produce and consume. which is likely to change fundamentally the place and significance of work in society. Only this morning at news I heard that in Sweden, a country of 10 million people, 5,000 stores and shops closed last year. So there will be change. There will be change, for example, in where the jobs of the future will be. There will be changes in what working conditions new jobs will offer. And we'll indeed hear a lot about this in the next 2 weeks in this house during the International Labour Conference. And we'll even negotiate a declaration about these things. Like France, Sweden hopes that this will give an important political impetus on these issues that you're here to discuss today. Because we are starting to witness the effects of climate change on enterprises and labor markets, with differences, of course, between regions and between occupations. It was really telling to hear you, Minister, talk about the very real challenges in Ghana. But it's also clear that the working poor, with less resources, lower capabilities to build resilience, and are especially vulnerable. And women often face exclusion, discrimination, and socioeconomic vulnerability. And climate change risks widening this gender gap, which means that action on gender equality and action on climate change are fundamentally interlinked. Now, on the positive side, we also know that there is potential for more and better jobs, also for vulnerable workers. Green economies can be engines of growth, both in advanced and in developing countries. They can generate decent green jobs that increase incomes and social inclusion. It was very positive to hear by CDPOF, the last speaker, that 85% of the European population believes this. That I didn't know that, but that's reassuring on some level. Some jobs will be lost. A lot of jobs will be lost, in fact, and others will be created, and many others will be redefined. The greening of economies through public and private investments will require a coherent mix of macroeconomic, industrial, sectoral, and labor market policies. We're here today to help this transition that needs to be just and inclusive. And Sweden is indeed proud to support this initiative, which is well in line with the priorities for our collaboration with the ILO. So I thank you all very much for your attention and wish you a fruitful conference.
Thank you so much, Mr. Henning and Var. And we also very much look forward to continue to working with you, Sida, on this important topic. Also, I particularly appreciate your point about the importance of the macro and industrial and sector policies in actually facilitating this just transition. So with that, actually, our opening session is now being concluded, and I just want to thank all the speakers on the opening sessions for the excellent, rich, and also the very comprehensive the review. Thank you so much. Thank you. And so there is no break. We'll just move on to the next session about the key findings. So I would appreciate if you stay in your seat for a couple of minutes, then we'll start again. Thank you.